Hi guys, today we're taking a quick look at the internals and the disassembly of the brand new ASG CZ 805 BREN. And this is their brand new full-size assault rifle. A lot of people are eager to see what the internals look like, so let's go ahead and take it apart and see what it's like on the inside. So the first thing you need to do is remove these two pins here. The rear pin is located on the back. Simply pull it straight out, no tools required. You can then pull the stock straight down and that comes off straight off the back. And that exposes the spring guide on the back of the gearbox. You can also remove the front pin, much the same way, and that pops straight out. You then have a pin here located in the magazine well, so we're just going to tap that out, which is pretty easy to do. And that's your pin straight out, and your magazine well comes straight off the bottom of the rifle like that. Okay, now once you have that exposed, and this is much the same as a G36 in that you pull forward on the hop-up unit and the gearbox and the lower receiver comes out as one piece. So we'll just set the upper receiver aside, the magazine well and the stock, just get them out of the way. Much like a G36, you've got a single Phillips head on the underside of the pistol grip. You want to just remove that. That comes off pretty easy, and then the back strap needs to pop off, which is achieved by tapping out another pin. That comes out pretty easily. Just give that a pull and out she comes, and then that exposes the back of the pistol grip. And as it's a traditional version 3 gearbox, you've got the motor cage located here, and the motor and the upper gearbox, they're all attached together. So it's a pretty unique design. Now this next step is going to cause a fair bit of frustration with a lot of people. It is not easy to get, not the hardest getting the gearbox out of the lower receiver, but getting it back in is very, very difficult. So unless there's some kind of a jig in the factory, I'm not too sure what way they do it, but first of all we're going to start by just removing the spring and spring guide. You've got this large screw nut on the back, which is often thread locked, so if that's a bit tough, either use a very big screwdriver or you can use a blowtorch and maybe get some heat going on there and soften up the thread lock. We're going to then just twist the spring and spring guide. You've got a full length progressive spring, which is a nice touch, and we also have a bearing spring guide, so that's a full metal steel by the feel of things, spring guide with ball bearings. Okay, now that we have the spring and spring guide removed, we can progress to actually removing the gearbox. Now you'll notice straight away that the gearbox is actually loose in the lower receiver, and the way to actually get it out is, what you want to do is, I've actually got a pin here removed from this left side selector. I'll explain that why in a minute, because I've basically got the spring and little stud behind the selector actually removed, but that's got nothing to do with the actual disassembly. So what you want to do is you want to get the selector and the right selector, and you want to twist them both upwards to the uppermost position that you can achieve. You want to do that by pulling the gearbox up slightly and then twisting them and pulling up and twisting them, and you want to continue to do so until the gearbox gets up to in around that kind of position. You'll notice you can't actually move the selector any further forwards. You'll see this one is actually fully forwards, but the reason this doesn't move is because a part of the mechanism is getting trapped on the actual gearbox and selector plate. So what you want to do is you want to get yourself a Phillips head or something similar, just pry away the body. I know that's not the clearest, and that allows you to spin. So you want to pry the lower receiver away from the gearbox, and that allows you to spin the selector to the position that you need. You'll notice now that you can remove the gearbox fully from the lower receiver. And this is the part that causes the trouble. So basically you have this brass shaft with two cogs on either end, and that actually locates inside the actual trigger. So when that's located in there, it's very, very difficult to pull the gearbox out, so that's why the selectors have to be in the correct position to do so. Just to show you where that sits, that actually sits down inside the lower receiver like that, and that's where the two selector levers engage each other. So now we have the gearbox removed. Let's take a bit of a closer look at it. So first thoughts on the gearbox, it seems to be quite good, robust quality. You've got good thickness in the cabling here. It's nice and hard. You often see some silicon wiring, which is very easy to snag and tear, so that's pretty good to see. We'll start by removing the motor cage. We'll get closer to the internals and we'll have a quick look. So we'll just pull the motor cage out of the way, just pull it up there. You'll notice they actually have some little spring clips located on top of the gearbox here, which is a nice little touch, and they hold the cabling along the top side of the gearbox pretty effectively. So we remove both of them, and then it's your standard fare. These look like 7mm non-bearing bushings, but they are bushings nonetheless. They aren't solid bushings, so and much like any version 3 gearbox, you have this sector gear protector here, which just pops off. We'll now remove the top plate of the gearbox, which is normally quite difficult to do, and there's no exception here. And that's that removed. Now we can take a look at the internals. So I won't say what it looks like, these parts, where they've been sourced from. It looks like it's a well-known manufacturer. As we all know, ASG only recently became a manufacturer with the recently released Evo 3 Scorpion, which was the first gun manufacturer in Europe. But typically ASG do source their guns, and they make fantastic partnerships with other manufacturers to manufacture their guns, so this may well be the case here. So with no spring installed, it's obviously a lot easier to take this gearbox apart. We'll just pop open the gearbox there, yeah. So I think the bevel gear there might give away the actual manufacturer here, but that's no bad sign. King Arms are a very respectable manufacturer, and seeing good quality parts here. We have a nice polycarbonate piston. We've got a ported piston head here as well, which gives better compression. As the piston travels forward, you get air entering the piston head and swells out the O-ring inside the cylinder, so that gives excellent compression. Tough polycarbonate. And these look like very strong steel gears, which are pretty impressive. You've lost your shims on there, which is a good sign, like an effort has been made to shim these correctly. I'll try and get you a closer view. So yes, the same parts here. You've got a standard brass cylinder, nothing really fancy there. It looks like we've got a tough polycarbonate, possibly nylon cylinder head with a brass insert. Seems pretty tough. This elongated air nozzle is interesting. It's something similar you see on the likes of the Maruri recoil shocks. But yeah, tough, reliable parts. Ported on the back as well for that particular barrel length. Standard version 3 switch, so any G36 AK Fair should be compatible. Yeah, looks pretty good. And it does look like this trigger is ever so slightly different from the likes of AKs and the like, but possibly it is AK compatible. I'd imagine the very fact that this brass piece has to sit inside the trigger, I'd say it is proprietary trigger, so you may well be stuck with that particular trigger. That being said, this is a version 3 casing. There's nothing unique about it. There is space there for one of the version 3 Airsoft Systems ASCII units, so you could certainly make this into an ASCII powered 805 BREN, which would be a very, very nice little feature. So yeah, all in all, they're pretty impressive. These shims look very like G&P shims, but King Arms do use the same kind of copper shims as well. So as far as I can tell, you've got this tough red polycarbonate tapper plate as well from King Arms, so it's likely an entire King Arms fair. When it comes to the motor, it looks like ASG's just gone for King Arm standard high torque motor, which is no bad thing. This is an excellent strong motor, and you may wonder why not go for something like a high speed motor. To be honest with you, with the springs we have installed in these guns for the UK Irish market, so it's lower power, softer spring, the rate of fire is right up there. You're talking good 18-20 BBs a second, which is excellent performance. So that high torque motor is definitely getting the job done. And another thing is we're not seeing any overspin issues, which you do see more and more often now with some manufacturers. Install a softer spring, you get 2 shots in semi-auto, so we're not seeing that at all. The piston seems to be stopping in the force position all the time. We've even tested these with super soft springs, M85 springs, and there's no overspin issues, so that's a great thing to see. We'll have a quick look at the hop here. It looks like something very similar to a G36 hop-up unit. It is ever so slightly different, and that dial is extremely tough, so you're not going to lose your setting mid-game at all. So that's a that's a great thing to see, to be honest with you. So that's going to stay solid throughout your gameplay. Barrel wise, it doesn't look like it's a Type 4 barrel. It could well be, to be honest. We're one of the first in the world to have these, so I'm not sure what the exact spec is. I'm sure ASG will be good enough to let us know very soon. Hopefully it is a tight enough bore. It could be 6.05 or smaller, so it's undoubtedly not as 0.01, possibly 0.03, but it remains to be seen. Length wise, it locks in around 363mm length, so standard M4 kind of length. I'm sure you can put in a longer barrel if you want. You can extend it out into the flash hider and out into a suppressor as well if you wanted to go down that road. Take a quick look at the stock. That's the actual stock fully removed. This stuff is super tough. I mean, it is so strong, and that's a really tough polymer. It clicks around to the right, locks into place, and then you separate the two, and then it locks back like that. You've got the adjustable cheek piece as well, and then you've got the 4 to 5 position stock on the back. So really solid stuff, much the same as the lower receiver itself. The upper receiver, full aluminium construction with the laser engraved CZ markings on it there, officially licensed from CZ themselves. You've got flip-up sights on the front, activated by the buttons located on the left or the right side of the sights. So that is a fair bit of weight in that upper receiver. It gives us slightly over 3 kilo weight. And I just thought I'd point out this left selector plate. So basically when you're reassembling the gun, the selector lever, if you can imagine the gearbox fully reassembled with the trigger installed, so this is the unique looking trigger. You want to have the gearbox fully assembled with this piece located inside the trigger, and whilst you have the two of them in hand, you want to put both of them simultaneously down into the lower receiver, which isn't the easiest thing to do, and you want to do that when the selectors are in the fully forwards position, so as far forward as they can possibly go. And the reason for that is it basically allows space for you to insert the gearbox and rotate these backwards, push the gearbox down more, rotate it more, and eventually you feel them click into place. The reason it's easier to do this by taking the left selector off and removing the little pin and stud, which gives it that click action. The reason being, if you rotate this ordinarily fully forwards with those two parts still installed, they'll actually pop out the back and cause you trouble, so it's easier just to take that off, reassemble it without the spring and stud, insert the gearbox, and then take this back off at the very end and put the spring and stud back in and reassemble it. So that's how it goes back together. And then you reassemble it in backwards form to what you're after seeing at the start of the video. So all in all, we have to say the quality of this gun is exceptional. Very happy with what we're seeing here internals wise and externals wise. So thanks for watching. If you liked the video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.